Making his television debut as a contestant on LWT's heavyweight Saturday night dating show Blind Date, writer, broadcaster and entertainer Otis Deley has become one of Britain's most versatile and trusted broadcasters in a career spanning 3 decades. Following starring in a pilot for a Saturday breakfast show entitled Up Your Street, which was followed by Passport to Passion, Deley secured a presenting role on the satellite television channel Trouble, which resulted in him touring the country with the Smash Hits Roadshow. Joining the BBC in 1999 to present the children's consumer affairs show Short Change prompted him to appear on the radar of BBC television executives. Becoming a regular presenter on the Saturday morning extravaganza Live and Kicking alongside Zoe Ball and Jamie Theakston, in early 2009, Otis secured possibly one of his career-defining roles when he was cast alongside Suzi Perry and Jason Bradbury for Channel 5's The Gadget Show. I caught up with evergreen writer and broadcaster to talk heroes, gadgets and his recollections on an exciting career in telly. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr Ortis Deley.
So looking at your career as a whole, I guess you're unique in that you made your first TV appearance as a contestant on the heavyweight Saturday night extravaganza Blind Date. How do you think this experience as a contestant and member of the public offered you a special insight into the workings of television?
So workings of television, I think as an introduction to how television works, it probably spoilt me somewhat. I got picked up from home in a nice car, taken to some really plush studios in central London, and was treated like I was treated with a level of importance. Nobody talked down to me. I definitely felt as though I was relevant, and I sort of carried that sense of relevance and importance all the way through, to the point where I probably thought I was bulletproof for a while, and that attitude can often trip folks up, and it did me sometime down the line. I didn't really get to see the inner workings of television. I guess I was only privy to the heavyweight shiny floor extravagant part of the show, but it was a fantastic experience.
The world of entertainment is packed full of legends and icons who have each helped to shape the genre for future generations. What are your memories of the legendary Cilla Black?
I remember Cilla being exceptionally polite, professional. She did just enough to make me and the contestants feel relaxed and sort of part of the Blind Date family. But she didn't hang around and sort of party afterwards or anything like that. You know, she did her bit. She maintained a sort of dignified distance, enough for you to still hold on to the belief that she was at the time a legend and still is. But she was warm. She was reassuring when she spoke to me. You know, she punctuated stuff she was saying with a light touch on the shoulder. Her tone was ideal. I mean, she was absolutely perfect for the show. I'd say the show was perfect for her as well. You can't say the name of the show Blind Date and think about anyone else. You know, it was intrinsically Cilla, and yeah, and the show was a huge success, in large part to her involvement.
I no my work
So Josh knows the comedy writer Colin Edmonds, who worked on the first ever series of Blind Date when Scylla wasn't
Oh
there.
wow.
Yeah, and
Wow.
he just said then that experience that he had when Scylla wasn't a part of it, it was just a completely different show to what it soon like became.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I mean that's absolutely fair. And it's not surprising at all. Scylla brought an energy to the show, one that the show needed, and by the sounds of things, probably would have flopped without it. Um, and she just, I don't know, between her and the makers of the show, she made it because I know the format itself is very similar to the dating game, which is an American television format. Um, but you think of Blind Date, it's uniquely British, and um, so many things about what made it a success are down to Scylla and the energy that she brought to it.
Your rise to fame coincided with the surge in popularity of satellite television as you worked for the satellite channel Trouble. Looking back at this period, what do you think were the vital lessons that independent television learned from early attempts at satellite television entertainment?
Don't adhere to the rules. My time at Trouble is punctuated with shoots that just weren't they just weren't normal. They weren't typical at all. We'd turn up somewhere with cameras, sound, couple of presenters, and a director. Um, it just I wouldn't say rule breaking, but we bent the rules and we had a lot of fun. And teenagers and young adults loved that because it really spoke to them up until that point, up until the rise of cable. Um, a lot of TV shows and TV dramas featured, well, TV dramas especially, featured young actors who spoke in RP. So they all had Southern accents and they all spoke like like they were about to dine with the Queen. Even homeless kids depicted in Railway Children and such dramas were had the wrong accents, but they had accents that children up and down the country couldn't relate to. Enter cable and satellite, and you started to get presenters from Newcastle, presenters from Lincoln, presenters from South London, presenters from all over the place. And the way we spoke and the way we behaved, coupled with the content, we had dramas from America, dramas from Australia, Sweet Valley High, Canada, Degrassi Junior High, shows with attitude that teenagers really, really latched on. And the channel became, the channel was a sensation. And it was a real great time to be a creative in television, not working on any of the mainstream, was it four channels? The mainstream four channels at the time. So yeah, no wonder satellite surged in popularity because it provided what young people were looking for.
We all know Smash Hits was an influential music magazine and even spawned an award ceremony, but why do you think the TV incarnation isn't as fondly remembered?
So the poll winners party, I don't know, maybe it was too shiny. Maybe um maybe the viewers couldn't relate to the um the hosts in the same way as I spoke earlier about Trouble. When we went on the road, when we did Smash Hits Roadshow, for example, young people were able to get up close and personal with their favorite pop stars, their favorite boy bands, their favorite girl bands, and the energy was amazing. Like to this day, I've experienced like nothing like it. I hosted the Smash Hits Roadshow 2 years running, and Trouble had access to the roadshow for 4 years in total while I was there. There's nothing like trying to wade through a sea of screaming teenagers. Um, and you're trying to get to do your interview with the Backstreet Boys or NSYNC or All Saints or Billy Piper. Um, that energy was crazy. And I think, to go from being in amongst it in that surge of adulation and seeing your favorite artist in the flesh and then going to turning on the TV and seeing them there's a marked difference. Doing something for real, experiencing something in such a visceral way is always going to inform your emotions more than watching the TV show. So maybe that was it. I rarely tuned in at the end because I'd lived the journey was so much more exciting than the destination.
Yeah.
So I rarely watched the poll winners, but I watched the poll winners party quite a few times before becoming part of the roadshow. And then I just felt the show itself didn't compare to the tour.
Yeah, and I always felt as if it was scheduled on TV at a really weird time, like a Sunday afternoon. I'm like, what's
Yeah.
all this about? Like, who's on a Sunday afternoon watching that?
Yeah. I can't remember what time of year it was. It might have been winter, but you're right. On a Sunday afternoon, especially my generation, I'm not going to assume your age at all. But we'd be outside.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? We'd be getting muddy or wet or on the climbing frame or out on our bike or skating or something.
Yeah, I seem to remember it being on around this time of year at like 4 o'clock on a Sunday afternoon.
Yeah.
It made no sense.
Yeah, I can agree.
I remember playing so
Oh, what, like curries or something. Oh, yeah. Josh remembers being out like shopping one Sunday afternoon in like curries and seeing it on one of the big TVs.
Not enough to stop the shopping trip, though.
So, joining the BBC in 1999, you presented the children's consumer affairs show Short Change. How did you go about making the complex world of consumer affairs suitable for the CBBC demographic?
I can't take credit for that. We had a tremendously talented team of researchers, directors, producers, just everyone really came together perfectly for that show. I think probably it's probably the show I'm most proud of during my time at the BBC. One, it was how I got into the BBC. I had some meetings and a screen test for Short Change to become one of the reporters. Two, it was worthy television. It was a platform that provided information and tools for children to use so that they weren't taken advantage of when they went out shopping. And three, there was a beautiful balance between entertaining the audience and giving them important information. And that balance can be really difficult to strike if you're too whimsical and throwaway and funny, then the information doesn't hit its target. And if you're just spewing information, it becomes boring.
Yeah.
and I was on Shortchange as a reporter and then anchor for 6 years. And it was taken off air to allow the budget for that show to be distributed for other TV shows. And that was a huge mistake. And I don't say that because I I wasn't working on the show anymore, or that I missed it. Although both those are part of the reason why I think it was a mistake. It was a great show, which performed consistently in the top three every season. I can remember being a part of it. I still, nearly 20 years later, get asked, why was it taken off air? Why don't you bring it back? That show helped me in my childhood. I remember sending in this. I remember going to look for a price for that. It was a show that had a greater reach than I think any of us on the show appreciated. And yeah, it remains one of the shows I'm most proud of being a part of. It was a great show.
It was. I can
Yeah.
vouch.
Thank you.
Well, well, thank you. Um, when the she oh,
So yeah, just why do you think sometimes the BBC go about cancelling a show that's so popular when it adheres to everything that they stand for?
I think it's first of all, it's worth putting out there. Um, it's it's difficult to hit the mark, to find a show that works. It's in a lot of cases it's suck it and see. Um, that being said, there has been a culture for quite a long time of channels wanting their own version of something that's already successful. And I think taking risks and just seeing if something that sounds like a good idea or reads as a good idea will work and just going with it. There isn't enough of that anymore. Why do they take popular shows off air? Well, I can speak for one example. Like I say, Shortchange. The commissioner who came in at that time felt that the budget for Shortchange could be used well on other shows, new shows, funnily enough. And they were tasked with raising the budget for new shows, and they figured Shortchange um, was worthy of the chop. Sometimes it comes down to personal taste. Um, if you're a commissioner, you may take on a job for a particular TV station, and the channel's most popular show, you might not even like it. So then you're like, okay, well, I want to leave my mark here at the station. I want to bring shows that people say, oh my goodness, they made a really good choice bringing that show up. But how do you raise the money to create those new shows? Um, do you find it through, I don't know, somehow? Or do you say, well, there's that show that I don't like. And if I axe that show, then I could probably make two or three new shows. Oh, but it's doing really well. Yeah, I know, but it's been on for a long time. It's time for a change. Maybe it's that. I can only speculate. You'd have to ask the people who made the decisions, but many is the time. And I know I speak for lots of people. Shows have come off air, and fans of the show have been like, "What?" Even when it's performing well, if the audience has tanked and nobody's watching it anymore, I get it. Um, but I guess, commissioners sometimes want to keep things fresh, um, and put the money towards new shows. When I say new shows, I mean a new show on the station, but a rehash of something that somebody else is doing.
Yeah.
Sure.
The we are yeah. 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 I know.
Yeah. Before we ask the next question, Josh just wants to put a warning out there that he is a bit of an anorak, but I'm sure you've already picked up on that anyway. Anyway, when we spoke to the producer, Richard Marsden, he said that there are some shows that form the backbone of the BBC, and he included Blue Peter, Doctor Who, and now The One Show. Yet through the 80s and 90s, this also included the Saturday morning entertainment shows in its many guises. So as a presenter of Live and Kicking, why do you think the show was so important to the corporation's live output at the time?
Oh man, come on. It like Saturday morning TV was an institution. You know, in the 70s, 80s, and I guess half of the 90s, most of the country only had access to four channels. Um, and a lot of channels, sorry, a lot of parts of the country only had access to three. And so it meant on a Saturday morning when kids got up before their parents, and were perhaps too young to go out and play unsupervised, TV was the additional parent. Um, and so there was a ready-made audience there. And I don't know where the Saturday morning sort of magazine show began, but it was it was the thing to do on a Saturday morning. They're just uh, I didn't play football. Um, I didn't take part in any sports that required me to get up early on a Saturday morning. So I was at home, and it's just a no-brainer. My homework had been done. It was finished, or it would be done on a Sunday afternoon, um, stroke early evening, and of course during the week. Saturday was that free day. And you knew the afternoon was going to be taken up with watching sports. But in the morning, you needed something to accompany the bowl of cereal, and the orange cordial. There was a ready-made audience hungry for entertainment, and Saturday mornings just they hit that mark. A combination of not having that much freedom of choice, um, and especially during the winter, not really wanting to go out because back in the day, winter was winter. It was cold,
Yeah.
and a thirst for animated TV shows and anarchic, silly behavior on TV.
Yeah. In your opinion, what was the benefit of Live and Kicking being based at TV Centre?
Uh, the first benefit for me was that whole chaos of working in live television. You work on a children's television show live on a Saturday morning. It adds titanium to your backbone. Do you know what I mean? Um, the advantage of it being television center, I mean, for me, it wasn't a huge advantage because, I grew up in Southwest London. So getting from Southwest London to West London doesn't sound like much, but the journey was often really long and boring. Um, the BBC at the time knew they knew how to make um children's TV shows. They had it on lock for a long time. Um, I think the BBC could have made that show. Actually, no. I tell you what, one of the major advantages was. Um, it being in London meant it was very easy for stars from across the globe to get to the studios. When I started working on other versions of Saturday morning TV shows in um, other great cities, the UK is full of wonderful cities, but they didn't all have the same access internationally. And if an artist was coming over to the UK, they weren't necessarily going to do a tour of the country. London was going to be their primary stop off before moving on if they were promoting a book, TV show, a new album, a hit song, or something like that. It was challenging to get guests and celebrities out to those other locations. So Television Centre being in London was advantageous in terms of getting guests in.
In 2004, you secured a presenting role alongside Suzi Perry and Jason Bradbury for Channel 5's The Gadget Show. In your opinion, how has this show charted Britain's thirst to remain at the forefront of new technology?
So, just a slight correction. The show, A Gadget Show was born in 2004. I joined the team in 2009. I think the show reflected a global thirst for technology, and it came along at just the right time as people begun to get more curious about the tech in and around their lives, from the ones that they were using themselves, consumer technology, to the science and technology that was governing their existence. The timing was right. The platform, again, highly entertaining, supercharged in terms of energy, with the right balance of information to allow viewers to make the right decisions regarding what their next bit of tech was going to be. The team, again, I've been blessed throughout my career with working with exceedingly talented and passionate people, both on screen and off screen. And the team at North One who were responsible for the Gadget Show, they they just work really well. They knew what they were doing. They were passionate about it. And then on screen, we were passionate about technology. We had a unique synergy between us. We all got on. We all got on really well. And that chemistry couldn't be denied. On screen, it just, it came out of the screen and grabbed you by the lapels and said, watch this, it's amazing. And people did. And, that thirst for entertainment and technology was, well, we added to that. We added to the fire of the desire to get hands on with technology by sprinkling more paraffin onto those flames in terms of the competition. The competition was a talking point. The competition still is a talking point, even though
Yeah.
there's nothing like it anymore. Or I say there's nothing like it anymore. If you look at some of the other TV stations when they do prize bundles now, you can't look at those bundles and without thinking, oh, it's just like what the Gadget Show used to do. Nobody's just giving away a bit of money anymore. Nobody's just giving away a car. You're getting a car, you're getting a bit of money, you're getting a holiday, you're getting a TV, you're getting a fridge. The Gadget Show started that. And that will always be fondly remembered. That is something that they created that can never be taken away. And the hunger for knowledge surrounding consumer electronics, science and stuff is still there. Look at the rise in bloggers and vloggers on YouTube, for example.
Yeah.
Your M Kwans, your Super Safs, your Marcus Brownlees, your Gadgets boys, your John Devos. They are out there um, telling us about technology, giving us hacks, letting us know what we should be keeping an eye on. And I fully believe that without the Gadget show was the prototype. Without that show, a lot of these chaps and chapesses wouldn't be doing what they're doing now.
Yeah. There's famous clips from the 1970s in Tomorrow's World where Kieran Prenderville sampled the mobile phone. Looking back, were there any gadgets that have since become a staple of modern life?
Absolutely. The the mobile phone for one, smartphone now, text messaging, even though it's changed somewhat now, it's SMS, but it was seen as a bit of a gimmick decades ago, especially picture messaging. Picture messaging was seen as a bit of a gimmick. There were hats off to what text messaging had brought to mobile and telecommunications. And picture messaging, people were like, might not catch on, it's a bit expensive, and
Yeah.
the cameras aren't great. But now look, we communicate more with imagery on our phones than possibly any other medium. Um, Tablets, um, they are now a staple. The the humble the humble computer, the PC. Back on Tomorrow's World, they were telling us about BBC micros that would be installed in schools up and down the country. But you'd only get one. One school would have uh,
Yeah.
one or two computers that everybody had to share all of those classes through all of those different years at
Mhm.
school. They'd all have to share. Now there are many schools where, if they've not got a tablet each, it's a tablet between two, three, four students. This isn't the same across all schools, but there is an increased level of access um, to that. So the computer, the mobile phone, the tablet, um, and just integrated technology. Loads of things that were featured on Tomorrow's World that have made it into every day now.
My, I have take my you come 10 years ago, I was writing a book with my now on you were strong.
Yeah. For example, for Josh and his own life, the invention of the iPad has changed his life because if you had said to Josh 10 or so years ago that he would be writing his own book with his nose on an iPad, he would have thought you
Yeah.
were on drugs or something.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and that, there is always a a sort of disproportionate amount of fear when new technologies come out. I give the example of AI. I don't really know where AI is going to go just yet. When um, Apple released a smartphone with a touch screen, there were a lot of people saying, "Why are you getting rid of the physical keyboard? That doesn't make sense." And now look at us. Everything is touch screen, and not that many people can see the potential benefits of a new innovation. It takes a while for it to embed itself in society before we start to see the the benefits. Yeah, of course. Writing your books on a typewriter, Josh, would have been exceedingly difficult, if not painful. Um, and a benefit of these innovations that we've seen over the past 20 years is stuff that you know uh, people like me would have take for granted. I've used my nose on my phone a couple of times, for example, when I'm wearing gloves. And it's not accurate. My nose isn't accurate on the
Yeah.
screen. So to write an entire book
Mhm.
with that part of my face, I think is absolutely amazing. It's allowing you to do amazing things, and which is humbling for me, to know that you've done that, written an entire book just using that. It's amazing, and it's bonkers at the same time.
Yeah.
In what ways has the rise of online shopping and social media affected the potency of the Gadget Show?
Oh, it's too easy. It's way too easy. I I was waiting for lawsuits being leveled at the Gadget Show for creating bankruptcy. Once upon a time, if you saw an advert on the television, you'd have to um, use the yellow pages or teletext or Oracle to find out where the nearest store was. Pick up your landline telephone and call them to find out if they were going to be open or what their opening hours were. And then you had to make your way to the shop,
Yeah.
whether on foot or public transport, or if you were, fortunate enough to have a car, you jump in your car and go. And you had all of this time to have a word with yourself regarding whether or not you really needed to make that purchase. Anything from 10 minutes to 60 minutes, depending on how long the journey was. Online shopping now, you see something, potentially you've bought it within 30 seconds of seeing it. Um, and that is great on on the one hand, because it's made things so much easier. You could take our groceries, for example. Lots of people now don't have to physically go to the supermarket. They might not have been comfortable going to the supermarket. They can do all of their shopping online, but it comes with its pitfalls. As I say, it's too easy to buy lots of stuff, at the click of an icon. Um, Whereas once upon a time, you had to check your piggy bank, or you had to go to the bank to find out exactly how much you got
Yeah.
left in your account. Um, it's yeah, it's convenient, but it's also very dangerous.
I think one of the old school values that I kind of miss in a weird way is back when you're younger, or like say 15 years ago, you'd make your way to the shop, like you say, you know what you want to buy, you go there, oh, can I have this, please? Out of stock.
Out of stock. Yeah,
Being online, click, oh, check stock in your local area. Da-da-da-da-da. Oh, I don't need to go out today, is
you
there?
don't. Yeah.
What is your pain? Ah, so where you come in? I forget what you want and what I want.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Oh yeah, Josh was just saying, what do you make of those Amazon physical shops where you actually just walk in, it detects who you are, you pick up what you want, and then walk back out and you're done. You know.
Between you and me, I don't trust them. I don't know if I'd be willing to. I don't know if I could. I don't know if I could do it. Seen one or two of them. I thought they would be a lot more popular by now than they are, but I think maybe here in the UK there is a level of maybe not quite trusting it, because to walk into a shop to fill your basket, or your trolley, or your bags, and then just walk out still really feels a lot like stealing to me.
Yes.
And it's technically, I guess, or
Yeah.
technologically speaking, it's not. Everything is accounted for, and um, and your pay, your money is taken afterwards. But it does. It would feel weird just taking stuff off the shelf and putting it in your pocket. But then again, at the same time, I never thought there would be. I couldn't conceive as a child of a situation where I could walk into a supermarket, scan my items as I went round, um, point my scanner at something else, pay my money, and walk out.
Yeah.
Uh, you know, just technology revealing things to us that, or giving us gifts or advantages that we never would have thought about before. The shopping can be a lot quicker now, but I do find that that social interaction is now missing, apart from when your delivery driver comes to the door.
Yeah.
But they don't have time. They've not got time to stop and chat. You take your baskets and your bags in,
Yeah.
return them, and then they're gone. Um, Whereas at the supermarket, you would stop and maybe have a bit of a chat with the cashier. You might meet a couple of friends or people from the neighborhood there as well. But if you're just stuck on your scanner walking around, you miss so much.
Yeah, true, true. You now present Shop Smart, Save Money alongside the TV icon and friend of the podcast, Gabby Roslin. How do you think these types of programs will act as timestamps for future generations to obtain an insight into the fashions and trends of Britain in the modern 20s?
I think in terms of fashion, it's instant. You can see immediately what we were dressing as, or what we were wearing at this point in time. I think more importantly, in terms of a societal stamp, the Shop Smart Save Money is responsible programming. We've recognized that money isn't disposable, and that a lot of people around the country are facing challenges with regards to money coming in. And when that money does come in, spending it responsibly. We've recognized that, and Shop Smart reflects a change in attitude. With Gadget Show, if I can make one comparison, not for negative or positive reasons, we celebrated technology, and our celebration featured the everyday and a lot of the extravagant in terms of how much certain technologies or devices or setups cost. There's less of that now because it's a more responsible way to look at technology. We're now looking at technology in ways of how can it help us navigate these austere times. We still feature technology, but now we're saying, how can we use this? How can we use this platform? How can we use this app? How can we use this device, this reader, to help us shave some pennies and pounds off how we spend? And it's great being able to. It's almost like my career has come full circle. I hope this doesn't mean it's the end of it, but I'm now arming. I'm now responsible for arming the people with ways to save money and to avoid pitfalls when it
Yeah.
comes to
Mm.
spending their cash. And that's how I started on the BBC all those years back.
Yeah.
Britain boasts a rich legacy of the quintessential male TV broadcaster from Noel Edmonds, Mike Smith, Andy Peters, Jamie Theakston, Dermot O'Leary, and Roman Kemp. In your opinion, how important has this male footprint been in cultivating the next generation of TV personality?
Um, the list that you mentioned there, all very, very different individuals with very different personalities. I would argue that our female presenters have been and are just as important. So alongside your list, uh, I would say Gabby Roslin, Angelica Bell. I would say Zoe Ball. I would add Emma Forbes, uh, Sarah. Oh, don't forget her name. She was
Green.
married to Mike. Sarah Green. Thank you. Um, all very important role models for young children growing up during the 70s, 80s, and 90s. I do think it's very important for young minds and people in general to see themselves reflected in the content that they are consuming. And now we are in a situation, or we are moving towards a situation where more of the diverse nature of our country is being reflected on screen. Um, that's that's very important. When I was growing up, there were one or two. We had Derek Griffiths, uh, of whom I remain an absolute stan. I think he was is sorry, because he is still with us, an absolute legend of children's broadcasting. Floella Benjamin, her name I should have mentioned first and foremost. Um, and Sir Trevor McDonald. Like whenever their faces appeared on TV, it was like that's someone who looks like me. That's someone that has a texture to their voice similar to mine. And then as shows like Grange Hill started to gain popularity, I started to detect people whose accent sounded like mine as well. So I think it's really, really important that this diverse representation continues, because the diversity of the UK continues to shift and evolve.
Yeah.
And I hope that those that are coming next are are spoken of and revered as highly as some of those names we've mentioned.
Oh, it's about how
Yeah, I think what Josh was trying to get at with that question was more of the case of it was go asking about like passing down the different archetypal sort of like presenters through the ages, and you
Yeah.
recently spoke to Sarah Green, and she like expressed that point as well.
Girl, we,
Yeah. And someone like going back as far as like someone like Gloria Honeyford, like you can see just little bits and pieces of her style and her way that has been passed down through. So it was more of that angle with the question, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, I think for a long time there was there used to be a joke among some of the presenters at CBBC in terms of type. There was if you look across a lot of the male presenters that were at CBBC between, let's say, from about 99 to 2003, a lot of them sort of wore similar clothes, had the same haircut, sounded the same.
yeah,
And yes, they were borrowing from, I would say, the Jamie Theakston archetype while I was there. Um, and then, of course, Jamie Theakston would have grown up and been influenced by your Noel Edmonds type and your Mike Reed types. So their way of communicating would have been passed down.
Mm.
And then from your Jamie Theakston, you had your Steve Wilsons, your Dick and Doms, who then, you know, turned it on its head and started talking about bogies and introducing that anarchic flavor into uh, into television, which I would argue was born on ITV, so the BBC's rival on a Saturday morning. I would say, for my part, um, as much of a fan as I was of Swap Shop and Saturday Superstore, for example, um, the Saturday morning shows that really spoke to me were the off the wall, uh, anarchic ones like number 73 and Tis Was. Because those ones, the adults behaved just like children, and the entertainment that we saw was brilliant. And we would go to school on the Monday and talk about the Phantom Flanflinger, or I think there was a competition on number 73 where they would stack a sandwich as high as possible. I can't remember what the object of the game was, but it was,
yeah.
you know, it was messy. It felt off the cuff. It felt as though no one had rehearsed what was going on. So there was just madness in the studio. And I'd like to think that the energy I brought during my time at the BBC was more akin to that. I think you'd be hard pressed to compare me to anybody that came before in terms of the style that I presented in. Um, and I would hope that there are, or there have been, presenters since who would have seen that and said, oh, that speaks more to the type of person I am. That's how I'm going to present myself
Yeah.
and communicate.
Mm. So looking back at your career, what's your proudest achievement?
I don't have one. I am fortunate enough to have worked with fab people and on some amazing shows. So, as we sit here now, first and foremost, one of the best TV shows I ever worked on was the T Spot, which was on Trouble. This was a daily magazine show that ran for half an hour. So we had 30 minutes, Jason Bradbury, Lucy Cave, and me, and also DJ Big Ted. We had 30 minutes, Monday through Friday, to squeeze as much entertainment in as we could. And we had soap stars, pop stars, competitions, kids coming from across the country to show us their talent. We had skits, funny bits and pieces, competitions. It was amazing, absolutely amazing. And I remember that show fondly. Uh, 2 years later, we became uh, the first broadcaster to do a live show from a high street store in the UK. This was T99. We broadcast from the basement at Topshop on Oxford Circus. So again, this was different, this was new, this was fresh in terms of the UK. It was like back in the day, new pop artists would visit shopping centers and perform their songs to audiences, some of whom had come to see them specifically, others just wanted to get on with their shopping, and had this noise going in their ear. T99 was something like that, but like kids came from all over London. Some traveled down from or on across from other parts to be there for that 1 hour that we had the stage. So two shows I was very proud to be a part of early doors. I've already mentioned Short Change. Incredibly proud of the work that was done on that show. The Gadget show has been, an absolute institution and took me to places I never thought I would ever get to visit. And I've seen things and spoken to people and organizations that are doing amazing things. I, off the top of my head, those would be the four shows that I am most proud of. I was trying to think if there was another show during my time. Oh, Hype. So when I started at the BBC, I got the job for Short Change, and CBBC wanted me to do some other shows as well. And I was a roving reporter on Live and Kicking, and I also did a show called Hype, which was a music-based sort of magazine show, which I hosted with Emma B and Jonathan Wilkes, and we went round the country interviewing amazing young people and uh, in cities and towns around the country where bands were about to play. And while I was there, I got to interview anybody and everybody that was making music around that time. Really, really enjoyed that too. There's your top five.
I think you just dug up childhood memories. Yeah. We both just remembered that, didn't we? Emma B is a friend of the podcast as well.
Oh, she is. So Emma, like I say, I first met Emma working on that show uh, in '98. So yeah, 25 odd years ago. And when my wife and I first moved to where we are now, about 13 years ago, I randomly bumped into Emma, having not seen her for over 10 years. And she literally lives a couple of towns over. So I see her every now and again. And yeah, she's one of the good ones. Definitely one of the good ones. I've got a lot of love for Emma.
We agree. Just to finish off, what's next for Otis Deley?
What's next? I think I'm finally in a place where um, I feel confident enough to make more of a big deal of the things that I like. For many years, I've been uh, compelled to celebrate and shout about the things I know other people like, and has been a design of whatever show I've been a part of. Absolutely no regrets. I've loved it, enjoyed it, seen and found out new things. But I have one or two of my own uh, personal likes, and I am on a mission to shout more about those. And I'm working on making that happen. So I'm hopeful and quietly confident that in 2025, you'll see new and different content from me in addition to what you already know me for.
Oh, oh yeah.
Are you allowed to tell us any little things about what that
Yeah,
might?
yeah, absolutely. So I'm a big fan of whiskey, massive fan of whiskey. And over the last 15 or so years, I have learned a lot about the industry and some of the things that go into making some of the best liquid on the planet. And I want to share that information with as many people who will listen. I have a platform that I run with two very good friends of mine called Glassmates. And I am hopeful that you're going to see a lot more from the three of us in the coming months and years.
Okay.
So, yeah, my God.
So are you planning to make your own, or do you make your own at the moment?
I don't make my own currently. You need a massive amount of money to get started as a distiller. Uh, that being said, uh, watch this space. They just just watch this space. I don't have my own distillery set up yet, but there will be stuff coming with our name on it.
I see. Okay.
I make my own room. It was
Josh made his own custom bottle of rum once, and it was horrible.
I'll take that under advisement and try to avoid making the same mistake.
Well, that's a good way to end. Thank you very much for your time today. That's
My
great.
pleasure. My pleasure. Thanks, Josh. Thanks, Ian.